Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well, and thank you all so much for joining me again to watch my whiskey wandering videos. I cannot thank you all enough for being a part of this small, but again, growing community of whiskey and bourbon lovers. And it's just so interesting to hear what you all have to say from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, and to hear about what's available and what's not available and what you wish were available at your local Costco. So that is all pretty amazing and pretty great. Now today, I'm in a Costco that's located in Los Angeles, back in the city of Van Nuys. And although it's not really a well-known city, this Costco does tend to have some pretty good and interesting whiskeys that are not readily available at the surrounding Costcos. Luckily, it's still one of the few Costcos where you can still find some of the leftover whiskeys from St. Patrick's Day. And today, in fact, I'm going to talk about the Redbreast Lustau, which is amazing, by the way. This mundane but highly rated Dickel, 8 years old. And last and budget-friendly most is this Irishman whiskey. Now, before we get to it though, if you like these little videos of me doing whiskey shopping at Costco, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when my newest videos get put up. So thanks again, and let's get down to it. So the first whiskey that I'm going to talk about today is this Redbreast Lustau. Now originally I had first saw this whiskey back near St. Patrick's Day, and it seemed a bit strange, and at the point I had really just started my whiskey journey. So basically I had just been consistently drinking things like Johnny Walker Black or Jack Daniels, and only on the special occasions getting Johnny Walker Blue. So pretty basic as far as whiskeys go. But I decided to pick up this Redbreast Lustau on a whim, just kind of randomly, and it set me on a whole new learning direction as far as whiskeys goes. Now, this Redbreast Lustau is an Irish whiskey that is aged in ex-bourbon and sherry casks for between 9 to 12 years. Then it's finished off for the last year, for 1 year, in the Oloroso sherry casks from the Bodegas Lustau in Jerez, Spain. What this does is it flattens out the ending of the whiskey and adds a sort of deep, sweet masculineness to the whiskey, sort of like a tasteful, expensive men's cologne, and brings an amazing balance of flavor to it. The whiskey is distilled by Middleton, basically like most of the Irish whiskeys that are available, and is the little brother to the Redbreast Pedro Ximénez, which is the same as the Lustau, but just more mature tasting. Also, the 1 year of barreling is sort of unusual. It's sort of exceptional right now because a lot of times when they finish off whiskeys, they finish them off just for 3 months. But this one is actually for a year. It's a non-chill filtered and has a mash bill of malted as well as unmalted barley. Another great aspect of the Redbreast Lustau at Costco is that it's reasonably priced. At Costco, the price is set at $56.99, which is pretty good considering the high and the low prices on the street shelf price, which are as high as $109.99 on the high side, and $59 are on the low side, $59.99. That combined average street shelf price of the two comes out to be $84.99. So if you do end up finding it and buying it at Costco, you'll get a savings of $28 in cash or 32.95%. Now the ABV on the Redbreast Lustau is set at 46%, so it is a bit more beefy than its cousins, the Redbreast 12 and the Redbreast 15, which are both only at 40 ABV. The tasting notes on the Lustau mention things like creamy toffee, complex baking spices, hazelnuts, creme brulee, anise, and a velvety flavor. Now, every time I try this Redbreast, more and more of these flavors just seem to reveal themselves to me. But I think that's probably just me gaining more experience and my taste buds getting adjusted to it so I can actually recognize the flavors when they are present. Now, the average combined reviews that I could find on it had a score of 89.80 points and mentioned that it was well-balanced, a cohesion of flavor, and long-lasting tail, and quote-unquote awesome. And you know what? I've got to agree with them. So if you haven't figured it out on this one, I actually would buy it. And in fact, after getting that first bottle, I actually picked up 2 more bottles just for that summer whiskey doldrums, when whiskey is short and when the whiskey and bourbon savannas go dry and we all have to go drinking the plentiful but less fulfilling bulk whiskeys. Okay, so this next whiskey that I have passed by a lot of times, and you know what? I always snicker at the name and then I don't think about it twice, but after reading the reviews and understanding a bit of the history, I will definitely have to reconsider getting some next time if I ever see it again. And that is the Dickel 8-year-old bourbon. Now, founded by George Dickel back in the 1800s, Dickel has a long history of producing whiskeys out of Tennessee. But this is the first Dickel whiskey that actually refers to itself as a bourbon. It has a mash bill of 84% corn, 8% rye, and 8% malted barley. I think part of the reason that it turned me off as well in the beginning is that there's just so much of it on the shelf. It doesn't feel scarce or valuable, which I know is not true and not related to the taste or the flavor if you like it or not. But how many times have you been in the whiskey aisle and you see someone grab the second to last bottle of whiskey? And I guarantee you that you're going to at least take a look at that last bottle that's left and take a hard thought about whether you should grab it or not. I know for me, I almost always do grab it and at least put it in the cart and walk around with it for a while. And then maybe just if I end up putting it back. So that's just me. Now, either way, the Dickel 8-year is priced at a very reasonable $23.99 at Costco, which is a discount in comparison to the street shelf price at the high and the low of $62.49 on the high side and $29.99 on the low side. So this means that the combined average price comes out to $46.24. So if you pick this one up at Costco, you'll be saving $22.25 or a whopping 48.12%. Now, I think that the big discount in the Costco price probably is because Costco bought so much of it that it really can't afford to sell it for lower prices, or maybe it's just taking up too much space on the shelves and they're trying to get rid of it, but for whatever reason, it seems to be a pretty low price. The ABV on the Dickel 8 is at 45%, which is right down the middle, and has tasting notes of sweet cream, nougat, toffee, caramel, light espresso, and vanilla custard. Oh, and sweet, sweet candy corn, which, you know, it kind of sounds right up my alley. Now, where things get really interesting in the Dickel is the fact that the average review scores of it give it 90 points, which is really good, especially for the price. They mention things like the unique and interesting taste, which isn't always good, but in this case it is, the complexity of it, and it's decent to sip on or use in a sweet cocktail, like a mint julep or an old fashioned, or hell, if you're feeling crazy, a full horseman of the apocalypse. So, despite its whimsical flavors, it still gets a very respectable score. And so, this is the last time I'm going to say Dickel. I know I said a lot in this one, but last time I say Dickel. But after reading the reviews on the Dickel and seeing the very reasonable price, I'm just going to have to pick some up next time and see if not for anything, it's at least a decent quality for the price, and it won't feel so painful when you share it with your friends whose only concept of whiskeys is Jack Daniels and Jim Beam. I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying. Now, the last whiskey I'm going to talk about today is this whiskey called the Irishman. Now, first off, the name and the marketing seems a little bit too on the nose for me. But it is an Irish pot still whiskey, and that is named after the founder, Bernard Walsh, who is, I guess, presumably an Irishman. The brand is relatively new, having only been founded in 1999 by an Irish coffee company, which makes me wonder, I mean, is it a coffee that is made by Irish people, or is it coffee with whiskey in it? Either way, it sources its pot stills whiskey from Middleton and malt whiskeys from Bushmills, and is triple distilled. It's composed of 70% single malt whiskey and 30% single pot still whiskeys mixed to make the final product. Now, the price on the Irishman at Costco is at $16.99, which is low enough to really start to make you wonder kind of what's in it. The high and the low street shelf price for the Irishman is at $52.49 and $37.49 on the low side. So this may be yet another one of those cases where Costco is buying bulk and saving and being able to pass it on to us. Kind of ironic, I guess. So if we average out the high and the low prices, though, it does mean the average cost from the street shelf price will come out to $44.99. And if you do end up buying this at Costco, then you'll save $28, which is pretty good considering the price. But percentage-wise, it's probably the highest that I've seen at 62.24% savings. The ABV on it is 40%, so it's not exactly the heaviest whiskey in its weight class. And the tasting notes on it do mention things like honey, vanilla, pineapple, and grassy cacao. I guess sort of like eating chocolates on the beach in Hawaii if you're on a golf course. So in conclusion, I think this one's probably still going to be a pass. It's not that I'm opposed to it. It just doesn't have any... I don't have a lot of space in my whiskey closet at the moment, and especially for bottles that I know I'm just going to pass over every time I see it for something else. So I just don't want it lingering around and taking up space in my closet. But it's probably okay. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wandering at Costco and Van Nuys. Thank you all so much again for watching to the end, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you get notified when my newest videos get put up. And also remember, if you see a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will, and it might even be me. So have a great rest of your day. I'm out, and adios.